Hi, this is Ingrid. The topic of my research is From Monkey Can to the Boy Who Lived. It is a comparative research between Harry Potter and the Journey to the West. And I will introduce the influence of religion's background on the criteria of good and evil in Harry Potter and the Journey to the West. So, let's start. Well, when Harry Potter first came out, it became the most successful Western magical literature of all time, and until today, they are more than 20 years after its publication. Harry Potter's author J.K. Rowling is still on Forbes' list of global celebrities because of the Harry Potter series. And another one, The Journey to the West, is one of the four great masterpieces in Chinese 四大名著 of ancient China, which is written by Wu Cheng'en, and among many Chinese, this work is considered to be the most influential work of magical literature in China, and it is an enduring classic in Chinese myth. Therefore, the author Wu Cheng'en has a traditional thought of uniting the three religions of Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism among the intellectuals of that time. Therefore, they are Buddha如来and Bodhisattva among the goals of its journey to the West. They are also Jade Emperor and Heavenly King in Taoism, who often join forces to deal with rebels like Sun Wukong. And the novel is full of Buddhist stories and Confucian classics and Taoism prophecies. And the four characters end up obtaining the true scriptures, which is the goal of Buddhism, living forever, which is the goal of Taoism, and third one, the continuing to help the world, which is Confucianism. And from this, we can see that it is with overtones of the combined glory with these three religions. And Harry Potter is a story of self-redemption created for the reader by an author steeped in the world of this profound Christian culture. And Journey to the West, on the other hand, was written during the Ming Dynasty, and it is a projection of the nature world through the portrayal of imaginary gods and diamonds. And in Harry Potter and the Journey to the West, Chinese and Western religions cultures profoundly influence the criterion of good and evil in creating magical literature, and I will introduce from these aspects like the relationship between the mind and the god, which is an anthropology, anthropocentrics, and in the Western religion, theocentralism, and the second aspect, the self-redemption and self-fulfillment, and the third one is the subjectivity of moral, and I will discuss the gray area of good and evil. So let's come to the first part, which is a relationship between the mind and God. The differences between the Western and the Chinese is in the Western it is being chosen, and in Chinese is to choose. Well, the relationship between mind and God, which is mind's belief in God, is an essential part in every religion. In contrast to Chinese religions, which are firmly anthropocentric, that is believe that humans are more important than anything else in the world, and the Western religions are characterized by a significant theocentrism, which means believe that the God are more important than anything else. So, in Christianity, God has unlimited power over everything, and He is the world's creator. And the line between mind and God is very obvious and very evident. God is both the creator, sustainer, and finisher of the world. And during the Shang Dynasty, China also believed in a similar God-centered ideology. But, however, after establishing the Zhou Dynasty, the God-centered culture gradually began to transition to a human-centered culture. And in the ancient China text Taiping Yulan, it has circulated the story of Pangu who opening the world and Nuwa who created the mind, which are early explanations of the origin of human beings in Chinese traditional culture. And, however, the reason these gods, the Chinese gods, hold a high position in Chinese myths is not only they created all things, it's not about the identification, but that they let humankind to know all things in the nature and conquer it by their efforts. Therefore, we can see that the gods in traditional Chinese culture are actually anthropomorphic images, they are just like ordinary people, like us. But however, they played a leading role in the fight against nature and therefore they were sanctified by later generations. And the different relationship between humans and gods in the two religions' culture are also reflected in literature and have influenced literary characters. For example, in Harry Potter, Harry is born with a scar on his forehead in the shape of lightning bolt, and Harry is able to become the boy who lived and a unique wizard simply because of his parents, just like Jesus was given extraordinary power by God, but at the same time, Jesus himself was just an ordinary man. He has the power just because he was the chosen one. And Harry was be chosen too. He was be chosen to carry out the mission of revenge against the Voldemort. And by contrast, in the Journey to the West, the four main characters all set out to obtain scriptures as a result of their own choices. They chose them by themselves. Like for example, the Tao monk, he wanted to demonstrate loyalty to the king and the country, so they go to the Journey to the West. And the monkey king, he wanted to stop being crushed under the Five-Finger Mountain, therefore he chose to go on the Journey to the West. So the characters in Journey to the West eventually become Buddhas through their long journey to realize the cultivation, not because of their God-given abilities. Instead, because their abilities and the ability they earned through their experience. And at last, the Confucianism in the mainstream of Chinese traditional culture, it is emphasized the centrality of mind in history and his actions in history, like their behavior in the real world. So from there, the Christianity has since distanced itself from traditional Chinese culture. And in the second part, I was talking about the differences between the Western and Chinese religion in their idea of self-redemption and self-achievement. Well, J.K. Rowling has built a magical world in her novels for people trapped in the circle of materialistic sin. That's because under the theme of Christian salvation, Harry cannot live on the sidelines and cannot get away with it in the muggle world. He can't just enjoy his life and just ignore the mission on his body, in his body. And the theme of life is only one thing, just how to seek salvation in a world of suffering and desire. And in the novel, Harry is prematurely burdened with the mission to destroy Voldemort and to save the wizarding world, and he is destined to struggle while repenting. That's because repentance is a process of self-redemption. Well, to a certain extent, Harry embodies the Christian personality of salvation. And Rowling wanted to show people that even if the material world is very disappointing, they should not drown in the abyss of evil and give up the pursuit of love and goodness. And another theme of Christian culture is martyrdom and dedication, which is very different from Confucian culture's flexible and realistic approach to human life. Harry bravely undertook the heavy responsibilities of fighting Voldemort with the belief in salvation. While in the process of struggle, he faced Voldemort's repeated several threats and temptations, but Harry must be tenacious and unyielding, and with a more incredible determination to do good and the perseverance of love in his heart to persevere until the destruction of Voldemort. And the Journey to the West was written during the Ming Dynasty, when the three religions of Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism were in particular period of convergence. So the novel strives to integrate the Confucian virtues of loyalty, filial piety, propriety, and righteousness, and the Buddhist doctrine of compassion, the Taoist style of purity and simplicity. And in the 12th chapter of the Journey to the West, there is a text that the Tang monk said that though your poor monk has no talent, he is ready to perform. I shall seek these true scriptures on behalf of your majesty, that the empire of all Ken may be firm and everlasting. And he also said that, since I have received such grace and favor from the king, I have no alternative but to serve my country to the utmost of my loyalty. Then this is the origin of Tang monk's journey. It is cited as the imperial edict to obtain the scriptures in order to repay the emperor's kindness and risk the journey, which is actually a typical Confucian ideology and culture of loyalty to the king and repaying the country. In Chinese, it's called 忠君爱国. And the Confucian concept also profoundly marked Sun Wukong's behavior. Sun Wukong was so respectful and filial to his master that even when he was wrongly blamed by his master and driven away, he also told other disciples to protect him. The Tang monk has twice relegated Sun Wukong, expelled from the team. He suffered and he still sighed, although I'll be back in the water curtain cave, I've stayed with the pilgrim in my mind. And the premise of Christian salvation is that all men have sinned, therefore all people needed to be redeemed. However, the religious spirit of Confucianism is characterized by a concern for the reality of human life. Concepts such as liberation or salvation are superfluous to Confucianism's religious spirit. We don't have this concept in the Confucianism ideology. Well, instead, the point of Confucian concept of self-fulfillment, which means the fulfillment of the value of an individual life in the present world. This is the most important point in Confucianism. And in the third part, I will discuss the subjectivity and gray areas of judgments of good and evil. Well, during the Ming Dynasty, the city's commodity and economy developed. So therefore, the citizen's life was more prosperous than ever. The status of merchants and traders was further improved, and the idea of private ownership gradually spread. And people's consciousness of protecting their own interests became stronger. Which make it easy for some people or things to happen in society to hurt others for their own interests. So, when determining right and wrong, people tend to put their own interests at the first. And so, the Journey to the West was written in that period, so it reflects the social and cultural climate of that time. While most of the ordinary people portrayed in Journey to the West, they make subjective judgment of good and evil from the moral scale, like they treating who protects people's lives and properties like Buddhas as good, and demons who bring harm to people as evil. Basically making judgment of good and evil from the perspective of instinctive reactions. Like, for example, in The Journey to the West, the pixie firstly acts like an average and normal person in Gaolaozhuang and honestly cultivates, which is recognized by the people, by the villagers in the Gaolaozhuang, but however, after appearing as a demon, the people of Gaolaozhuang directly ignores his previous good behaviors and asks the mage to get rid of it, ignoring the essence of good and evil. But in Oden's perspective, the Wu Cheng'en, he shows his understanding of society by portraying various kinds of good and evil. When judging good and evil, the order mainly based on his own feelings about the social reality. Well, for example, the order shows a critical attitude towards a jealous, arbitrary judgment of good and evil for his own selfishness. The order shows a negative attitude towards the Tang monk's compassionate behavior without distinguishing between good and evil. And the order exposes the dark reality of society through magical stories and expresses a strong desire to eliminate violence and put the good at ease, which can show that the order's concept of distinguish good from evil. And in Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling believes that the evil is present and inescapable, that all of us will face it, just like the dark wizard Voldemort, who is a symbol of evil, which is invisible and untouchable but firmly attached to the human body. In his Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Inside, Voldemort summons the human and he summons the evil that lurks within man. This speaks to the nature of Christian beliefs about evil. That is, evil comes from the temptations from external circumstances and from the weaknesses of man's heart. Therefore, good and evil in Harry Potter are opposed but also unified. Like as the Dumbledore said that it is not your ability, but your choices that determines what you become. Harry Potter is on the behalf of good and Voldemort is on the behalf of evil. But in addition to the black and white, there is also a gray area. Like Harry has a mind connected to Voldemort, which is closely linked to the lightning bolt left by Voldemort on his forehead. This makes Harry to be the Voldemort's Horcrux. And it can also communicate in Harry and Voldemort's soul on the connection. And as Dumbledore later analyzed, that's because Voldemort gave Harry's power. This power led to his desire for destruction and evil thoughts from time to time. But, however, there is another power to save Harry from Voldemort. But in the novel, it doesn't tell us what kind of power this is, but the reader knows exactly what is it. This power is that Voldemort doesn't have. It's called love. So therefore, we can say that the Harry Potter series shows readers that Rowling believes good and evil are interconnected and interdependent. The process of becoming a hero is a struggle between inner good and inner evil. So, when Harry defeats Voldemort successfully, that's the time when Harry's hero path is finished. To sum up, the uniqueness and anthropomorphic nature of the gods in Eastern religions make the paths of the characters in Journey to the West through the hardships of eventually becoming Buddhists more reasonable, and it can also explain why Chinese religion's thought is relatively weak in the modern world. Most of the Chinese don't have religions unlike in the Western society. And in contrast, God's uniqueness and innate power in Christianity and the role of Jesus Redeemer also make Harry Potter's fate unique and chosen. The emphasis in Harry Potter is on the struggle of human spiritual world redemption. It is more abstract because it also focuses on the spiritual world. And in contrast, the religion revered in Journey to the West, it is encouraged people to seek happiness and realize their self-worth in the present world. The criteria for judging good and evil in these two literary works are influenced by their respective religion cultures. They are highly subjective and fluid, and the transformation between good and evil is often closely linked. Maybe last minute it calls good and it called another person, she or he will call this evil. And unlike the previous encouragement and criticism of pure good or pure evil, the relativity of good and evil is also increasingly discussed in modern society. I can call it a triumph of literature and two works spanning 1,000 years that have produced an interchange of ideas. So, thank you for listening. If you have any questions, please contact me. This is Ingrid, and thank you for listening. Goodbye.